Thank you so much for coming tonight. This is the first part of the two-part overview summary of the second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad-Gita, entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized. And this particular presentation, we'll do our best. We have material from 2 years ago when we did this. This was some new material as well. And this actually, for those of you who receive access to all of the previous classes, this concludes a series, almost like a syllabus, for all the chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. We had started with a particular format on chapter 3 a couple years ago, and chapters prior to that were very developmental. As we do things, we get a little more practiced in the graphics, and we learn to try to simplify the information so that the participants benefit. The whole program here is to help participants get as much optimum benefit from Prabhupada's mercy. He's given us knowledge that is nowhere else. And we actually, when I read the purports and I read the verses, if the purports were there, I don't think I'd understand those verses at all. Prabhupada's quite complete. And this particular chapter also, he says, is very important because it's the introduction to the whole book. It has many key parts to it. Mostly the important part is the realization that one must approach a spiritual master who's qualified and in the parampara, the disciplic succession. And of course, he's chosen the best. He's chosen Krishna. So we're going to be hearing the outline, and actually the outline and the conclusion, both to any presentation, be it a speech, a novel, or a book, has 3 parts. It has an introduction, it has a conclusion, and in between will be an elaboration. So you'll find chapter 2 is very big. It has 72 verses, and you'll find chapter 18 is very big. It has 78 verses. So both of them are quite large, and it is a bit of a challenge that we try to cover it as effectively as we can in a very limited time for your benefit. We don't want to miss out. This is a very special gift Prabhupada has given humanity, so we don't want to miss out. The first thing we're going to do is, I have a slide called, I think it's the Be Thankful slide. Do you have that one, Abai? Yes. I think this is, I happened to find that graphic and I thought it was very sweet that we appreciate our position right now. Right now we're during the month of Purushottam, which is extremely auspicious, and hearing Bhagavad Gita is one of the nice vratas you can perform. And also we're fortunate enough to have human birth, right? And we're sitting in the holy land of Vrindavan, and also we can be grateful for Srila Prabhupada's shelter. So it's always nice. Prabhupada said actually advancement in spiritual life, 50% of it depends on appreciation. Conditioned souls, actually, that's part of the problem of conditioning. They are not appreciative. God gives them everything, and they sometimes even say he doesn't exist or he's dead. But if we have that spirit of gratitude to Srila Prabhupada, I think that will help us always feel extremely fortunate, and we should feel inspired to try to help others have our good fortune, right? Become brahmanas, not kripanas, like that. There was, the first thing we usually do is we take a quick look at our assets. So we saw our spiritual assets: human body, Vrindavan, Lord Chaitanya's golden age, Purushottam. We have so many spiritual blessings, good fortune. Now let's take a look at the assets we have for our study of this chapter today. It's a bit voluminous. It's in 2 parts, but we'll take a quick look. Just again, whatever you have, it's good to know what do I have, my facility. So we'll quickly take a run through. You see it on the screen, and you have your packet as well. So here we have on the cover, it's the your resource materials, study resource materials. And on the inside, on the first page, we have a checklist of retention objectives, the thing that we start out at the very beginning. just so we're sure everybody by the end has take-home points, important things to remember about this chapter, because there's a lot, and there's no way we can cover it, even, it would take a long, long time to cover it in great deal, but at least in a 2-day overview, the most important things that you have, and you have an access to all of this in the full. And then we always have an information bank that can be used as an exercise bank for filling it in. So that's there, and we'll do a little bit of that. That has a sequential study program, which is nothing of my creation. Whatever I use in terms of materials are based on educational philosophy. I happen to have been in that background in teaching, so I try to present things in that system. It's not a concoction, so we don't concoct in spiritual life, nor do we even concoct in our material fields. There's always a science to every endeavor. And this is quite lengthy because you'll see there are places for the 5 topics and all the key words for those topics. And we have the themes there. We'll be circling the themes that are prominent. Each chapter has particular themes on which it focuses. Themes run throughout chapters. They're not necessarily restricted to any particular one. And this being the introduction has a number of themes in it, a number of important ones. So we'll be circling that. And then what you see, the rest of it, called angles of vision, Prabhupada always stressed looking at something from many angles of vision when we study, so we can fully understand it. So that is why we present slides. We share with us information bank, and you'll see we dissect the chapter by sections. You'll see their definitions. There'll be analogies, so that you can reference any particular aspect that you want to research. And on the last page of the study bank, something we did on the introduction of the Bhagavad-Gita, and I thought it was quite effective for the devotees. And we have a 5-step method for how to get the most out of a purport, because purports often overwhelm a reader if he's pressed for time, and he won't quite know if he has the time. He may just desist too fast. He can't cover it all. So this is a simple recipe for any size purport, multi-paragraph, or even a single paragraph. It's very simple. It's just like the ISKCON sandwich. ISKCON sandwich is morning program, evening program, and in the middle, different activities according to people's particular psychophysiological nature. So a paragraph is exactly the same thing. There's a piece of bread on the top, that's the topic sentence. There's a piece of bread on the bottom. It repeats the topic with a conclusion that we should have come to with the knowledge. Knowledge is not to be just useless. It's supposed to bring transformation of understanding and the heart. And in between, we see how to extract some of the essence of the piece. Okay. Then we have the verses, and this time I did it a little differently. We've put in the charts that show the breakdowns, and the 72 verses are also subdivided according to those 5 topics for you. And you'll see we've chosen a single word to not only boldface it, but make it all caps. So that way we can get a quick run through. If we want, again, there are very many ways to study, but the first way is often I scan or I skim. I get a look at the whole picture. Okay, so you'll see the verses according to that. And you have, I'm sorry, yeah? The list of the topics, it's at the very beginning there. And yeah, and it's also, right, you'll see every topic here is the introduction. For instance, the first topic, Mataji, is Arjuna's further doubts and surrender. And that's the first topic, yes. And we'll be going over those too, so you know those. They're simple. And we have them in a code form as well as in a picture form. It's very handy to have that reference, because if you have a home, you do that naturally. You'll have a kitchen area, you'll have a study area, you'll have a resting area, and the things that are part of that activity are there, right? You won't find the kitchen supplies in your study area, unless it's very tight. But usually there will be some categorization, classification. So the topics are there. And then the important thing is there are a number of key verses here. One key memory verse, and there's a chart for that. And there are a total of 12 altogether, and 11 others that are thematic verses. So we have also charts, a chart for that at the top. You see it? Number 13 is the one memory verse. All right? So those are all given in, and it's handy, the Sanskrit as well as the word-for-word meaning. So again, this is a reference for you to keep. It's, you know, handy material, and it is online. Some people like hard copy. Some people just prefer to have it online. All right, so we have that available if people wish to have that. And then on the back we have an exercise where you'll see we have the numbers here, and then we have the same chart with the blanks. So it gives you a chance to write it in or test yourself and see, oh, do I know which ones are actually the key verses in this particular chapter? And it's color-coded. That you can see more on the one. You'll see most of them are in the yellow section, which is the soul. And then you'll see one light blue one, that's in the section on bhakti-yoga. And then the last 4 are in the final section, sthita prajna, being fixed in transcendence. Okay, being fixed in your identity as a soul. So everybody able to follow so far? How's everyone doing over there? Okay? Good. Then, because it was so voluminous, then this is quite handy. Again, by section, you'll see Arjuna's further doubts and surrender. These are all of the words that appear in the purports that Prabhupada took time to define. So that's also quite voluminous. Because honestly, if you didn't have his explanations, it would be very difficult to understand what is Krishna really saying. It's no wonder most people, you know, they'll read books on Bhagavad-Gita and they don't quite get it. I mean, there are many other reasons why they don't, but Prabhupada has made it so clear, so very clear. And there are actually, I have online 60 lectures. We found 60 recorded lectures for this chapter, and there are 100 transcripts online. So he spent a lot of time on this. He said this is a very important chapter. Okay, so you see quite a few pages there on definitions, and I even would include references to other scriptures. Prabhupada does that a lot. He's citing other authorities, which is sabda. He's giving you that sabda brahman, proof coming from other authorities. Okay, we have a whole list of analogies and examples. This is quite extensive. Analogies and examples, Prabhupada uses them extensively in his purports. You'll find they're also in the slokas. I think our first section there is analogies that are in the slokas. Some are key memory verses. And the rest section, you'll see analogies and examples that are in the purports. So Prabhupada did that a lot because it's the general person has a hard time with philosophy unless he's given some concrete example that can help him bring it to practical understanding. He might not get the essential point. So knowing which examples he uses for what point, we have slides on that as well. Older ones, but still they convey the idea. And then there's a section after that. It's quite a bit of time. Philosophical points. Now this is any major point that he made in the purports. And that again is broken down by purports. And I just gave it a little caption, a little title. So this is so important because I said again, without Prabhupada bringing our attention to what is Krishna saying on our behalf. He's actually speaking to us. He's absolute. The book is absolute. It is Krishna. We're in Prabhupada's association as we read his purports, and we do our best to share that. And also we're in Krishna's, we're here. Arjuna is just the medium for us. This book is for us. Let us always remember, we wouldn't know very much if we didn't have this book. So you have it by sections, so many points. How many were there about? How many do you remember? 50 some or 50? There's some 50 philosophical points that I selected and we made slides for. These were from 2 years ago, so the style is a little bit outdated, but again, it's helpful. And then again, an objective checklist, because this is such an important section here of the Bhagavad-Gita. Arjuna in the 54th sloka asks, he hasn't spoken at all, Krishna's taken over. And Arjuna doesn't say anything again until the 54th verse, and he said, well, now you've explained anything, but how can we recognize a person whose consciousness is merged in transcendence? How can we assess that? So we have here many, many qualities, not only from that section, but throughout the purports, where Prabhupada will define, well, what's a person's symptom? What are the person's symptoms who's in transcendence or in Krishna consciousness? So we have here a numbering system of 1 to 5. I've used this again. I found this in educational books where there would be a checklist on performance. We can see how we're doing on something. So here, the scale is, well, I never do it, or number 2, I seldom do it, or 3, I sometimes do it, 4, I often do it, and 5, I always do it. So this is a good way for us to take a look at, well, do I speak only of Krishna, right? And of topics relating to Krishna? If you do, you're in transcendence. That's the first symptoms. What do we speak about? That will indicate our consciousness. What we say is what we're input will be output. All right? So that's a very handy thing. And that's 1 and almost 2 pages. And we have many scriptural references here. Prabhupada stresses spiritual life means I have heard. And by that they mean the Vedic standard is I've heard this in disciplic succession. They never say I think. He said that's mental speculation. It has no benefit, it can mislead, and it will only result in repeated birth and death. Advanced spiritualists such as Prabhupada, Uttama Adhikari, will never say anything that he cannot back up by Shastra, and he will often quote it verbatim. A Madhyam may know it. He may not know where the reference is, but he will understand the point and he will have faith in it. The Kanishta's weakness is that he doesn't study. Anyone who's not studying has to be a Kanishta. And he will not, his faith will be weak because he doesn't have the philosophical strength. Prabhupada said without knowledge, you cannot actually perform austerity for very long. You have to be fixed in knowledge. So knowledge also has many spiritual benefits. It burns reactions. So it raises to a higher level of adhikar as well. Okay? So you have here my scriptural references, and then there will be a numerical inventory again, an old chart on the breakdowns, and some old charts in here. Okay. Then one handy thing we put in here, and I used to do these before I learned how to use the tablet. I call these little icons. So on the last section of the study guide, you have 4 sides, and they are they look like little coins, and they have the word here that we call the key word that we use for each slide. And we have here shown that really heavily. And this is, you can't see it in color here, but on the chart up there, they're also divided according to topics. So we're going to spend a little time taking a look at the first 3 sections, because today we will do the first 3, and on the second day we'll do the 4th and the 5th. And we can get the mood. We'll see, why did we pick the word tears? Why did we pick the word grief-stricken? And actually you can see all of the terms in that section, they'll be using similar words. The first section is very emotion-based. It's the mood, the grief-stricken, tears, lamentation, you see it, you know, and then Krishna's disapproval. So the first section is quite an emotional interchange between Arjuna and Krishna. So we'll get a feeling for that. And we'll be going through those key, those little icons as well. You have icons on your phone all the time. You can pick quickly, oh, this is my WhatsApp, or this is my telephone, or this is my message. Okay. So you have the 72. I used to do all these by hand. When I look at them, I don't have that kind of determination anymore. But you'll see a keyword and the number and a little sketch inside. Okay. Then we have a very important chart here. This is coming from the VIG, and this is the 8 stages of fall down. And Prabhupada stresses, actually, we have to acknowledge that we are, if we are embodied, that we're in a very precarious position. We have already come to the fallen stage, and we have to elevate. The essential thing about the human form of life is that it gives that option. Through the natural evolutionary process in the animal kingdom, it's a gradual evolutionary process. The fish doesn't have to study to become a reptile or a plant. It's just, he has to go through the whole cycle. But when he comes to the human platform, he has to exercise responsibility to go further. And he can also, unfortunately, degrade himself back into the lower cycle. So it's a very critical thing that we have human bodies, and we need to know what will elevate us to further position and what will degrade us to a lower standard. So critical, so critical. The demigods have an opposite problem. They have to exhaust their pious credits. They cannot stop. They have to stay there until they've used up their pious credits, and then they fall back down to the lowest position. So going to the higher planets is not a good idea. And that comes from piety, but you have to be careful, because that's piety and impiety are both abominable, because they bind you to repeated birth and death. So that's a very important understanding. We have a human body. It is the only loophole. Yes, yeah. Could we save questions to the end unless you have it's, okay. Usually we would save them till the end. Okay, does everybody understand what we have here as a sequence? All right, now let us, I wanted to show a few of the compare-contrast slides before we started, because these are very important in understanding. I did compare and contrast what we don't do and what we should do. It's easy to know. So I put, again, being thankful, appreciate what we have, a human body, Yashodamayi, Vrindavan. We have assets, we have spiritual assets, and we should be grateful no matter what we go through. These are spiritual assets that, look how many of us are here on the, the whole universe. It's inconceivable. Okay, so the next one is, this is a little tribute to Yashodamayi. This is coming from material calculation. I've heard other references to other speakers. It's a good time to make vratas. And why? Even the materialists know that if you do something for 21 days, right? So this month is 30, right? So let's say I've made a vow this month, I'm going to increase my rounds to a certain level, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. If you can do that consistently for 21 days, that's 3 weeks, right? Well, let's say all 30, it becomes a habit. They say it takes 21 days to have a habit, not 1 day, 2, or up and down. So this takes determination, but I thought it's handy to know this. If you can do it for 3 months, that's 90. You're pretty much fixed. That's how to be fixed up. Yeah, it's a lifestyle. So you see, Krishna consciousness is a lifestyle. If you look around in the room, you'll see, people are pretty similarly dressed, right? And, we're all practicing Krishna consciousness to some degree or another. It becomes your lifestyle, and you can't live without it. So this is important for that final section. How is a person fixed in transcendence? He's fixed. So 2190, now you know what it means. What's 21 mean? Everybody? It's a habit, yeah. You can do it for 20, it'll be a habit. You'll just do it automatically. You have to break the old ones and make new ones. So that takes determination. And this Krishna consciousness is what we're doing. You know, people have to break old habits and replace them with better ones. And how many days does it take to make it fixed? 90 days, yeah, fixed lifestyle. You'll do it like that. So this is a good month if you're making vows. Remember 2190, okay? Now we wanted to take a look, oh yeah. Now we know our assets. Let's look at our debit column. If we have a body, does everybody here have a body? And we want to know, how did we get it? And it doesn't matter how old or which country, if you're male body, female body, if you're young or old, or beautiful or not beautiful. Everybody has this psychology to greater or lesser degree. Now, devotees should be getting rid of this. But for the non-devotee, you can assume for sure. When you're walking around, or you see a picture in a newspaper, or you see someone who doesn't have any idea about spirit, you can assume this. Number one, what's the first problem? Imperfect senses, guaranteed. That's easy to figure out. You need glasses, you need the sun to see. Number two, what will he do? He'll commit mistakes. Anybody here never made a mistake? Oh. Number three, what will he do? Right, he thinks he's the body. We do to some degree, right? We know better, but we still don't act on that platform. That's not a cheap thing. That's Brahmabhuta. Number four, what will he do? Yeah, the cheating propensity. Have you ever noticed how big that one is? You have to be sharp. Especially in the material world. You know, advertising, it's all false promises. It's like that. So everybody who's not practicing spiritual life, guaranteed, full on. Now these pictures, these people, they're all smiling. They're probably being paid to smile. Now you open a newspaper, and most people, you see them in the hospital, or there's a flood, or they're being cared. But the ones that are smiling, they're selling you something, and they're being paid to do it. So otherwise, people are suffering. Now the bottom line as to how we got the body. This is really sad. What's the first one? We envied Krishna. Why is he God, not me? Believe it or not, everybody's here to some degree or other. He thinks he's God. Believe it or not, it's true. And then what happens, because Krishna embodies everybody, what happens how you feel about other people? You envy other people. Have you ever noticed that one? Prabhupada said everybody in the material world is envious. Oh, why does he do that? Oh, I don't like him. Envy. Oh, I want something better, and I don't want him to have it. It's perfectly characterized by Duryodhana. Right? So this is the psychology of a conditioned soul, and this is the thing we're trying to erase. That's why we study Bhagavad-Gita. Now let's see, what are the consequences of this? What are the consequences? He has to suffer for this. He has to suffer. What's the first thing? Right, the threefold miseries. This is talking about caused by the body and the mind, caused by other entities, adibodhika, and caused by the devas. It's too hot, or we've just had hailstorm, right? Broke the windshield. Or somebody just offended me, right? Or a mosquito just bit me. Or I just had a headache. Actually, you get one, two, or all three at the same time, and there's never a break. Anybody notice that one? If you think there's a break, you're an illusion. And at the bottom, what are the four evils? Birth, old age, disease, and death. That's explained in chapter 13. These are considered evils. It's nothing to be excited about. Repeated birth, painful. Disease, painful. Old age, painful as you get older, right? And what about death? Very painful. That's why people don't want to talk about it. So this is the suffering. These bodies are given to us as punishment. The more you realize it, the more you're advancing in spiritual life. You want to walk around and look at people in the newspaper and they're decorating the body and taking pictures, selfies like that, and they're so proud of their body, but that means they're that more sinful. It's more sinful. Okay? So these are the defects. We found out our assets. We've got some assets. We've got some defects to work out. Now let's take a look. This one's a very important concept. Try to understand this, because if you can understand this, you'll have a theoretical understanding of I'm not the body. We've been saying this. Prabhupada says it every page, every lecture, every day, but who can realize it? This will help you. Look at this carefully. At the bottom, you see a worker, and this is a famous picture, and you see a worker and you see a boss, right? And the boss looks like he's telling the worker what to do, and the worker looks like he's being told to do. So it's two people, right? And at this level of consciousness, this is where we are if you're in duality. If you think you're the body, you will see in duality. And what is happening looks like it's the cause. It's the apparent cause. Because both of them are on strings. Okay? They're both on strings. And who's pulling the strings? Who's pulling the strings? Yeah, the super soul. Right. So one person who knows about super soul, he says, wait a minute, super soul's in both of them. So he's the puppeteer. So it's like super soul, and here's this puppet, and here's this puppet, and they're fighting with each other, but super soul's neutral. So this is the platform of neutrality. I don't react. Because it's super soul that's doing this. He's giving me my karma through another agent. Now, if one who has super soul realization and he progresses further, because that's liberation, that's Brahma Bhuta. At that point, you actually are Brahma Bhuta, not Jiva Bhuta. You have transcended and you've begun bhakti. We're practicing it because we're still somewhat in duality. But at that stage, you're aware of the remote cause. This is apparent. Like the kitten with the broom. The kitten thinks the broom is hitting him. The broom is not hitting him. The man with the stick is hitting the kitten. Now, higher than super soul consciousness, this takes you to the positive. This is negative. I don't like it. I don't like him. I don't like him. The middle one is neutral. But to go to the positive, to see things with love, that can only be done in Krishna consciousness. That's positive. Because at that platform, Krishna's all good. Whatever he's doing is all good. And if I follow his instructions, whatever I do will be perfect and all good. And that is the cause of all causes. Okay? And that is Krishna consciousness. So do you see where you really are? You are a soul side by side with Krishna. When you look away from him, what happens? He gives you the false identity down here. You're in duality. So you have to come up through a prescribed process. And that's the science of Krishna consciousness. Each of these chapters elevates us through the yoga system, the yoga ladder, to the position, if you follow it, Brahma Bhuta, and even higher, love of God. Okay? Explained by our Rasa Shastras, our Acharyas. Can everybody understand that? If you see the other person, somebody just come and offended you, what should you think? Who's running the puppet? The super soul, it's a puppet. They're just giving me my karma. So when you fight back, if you fight back, you make more karma. That's the problem. You make more karma. You get stuck. If you want to make life simple, see Krishna everywhere. That is called Krishna consciousness. And that makes life simple and blissful. And that's the final stage, from bhav to prem, and you're in love with Krishna and you're fixed. Everybody understand that? Did that help everybody? Okay. Remote, apparent, remote, and ultimate cause. Very good. Okay, let's take a look at some more compare contrast. This is nescience. I am this body. Everything belongs to my body is mine. My prime duty is sense gratification, concentrated or extended. Concentrated, I, me, mine. Extended, my family, my nation, my country, my universe. That's extended selfishness because it's based on a false premise. 2 + 2 is 5. That's wrong. You're not the body. It's illusory, and it's temporary, and it's full of suffering, and it's a sign of contaminated consciousness. Now, what's the correct? What is Prabhupada says, this is knowledge. This is not knowledge. The whole material world teaches nescience because it's based on the false premise. So what's knowledge? I am what? Yes, I am eternal soul. And the second level, because you have to have all three. And what are you part and parcel of? Yes, that's not it. That's the beginning. But I'm part and parcel of something. Krishna. You can't know Krishna without knowing the soul, and you can't know the soul without knowing Krishna. They're correlative. And finally, what's the third step? I should serve him. That's my constitutional duty. Everybody in the material world is a criminal. I hate to say it, but it says that in the Shastra. And in the Bhagavatam, this is called the criminal world. It's the prison house. Everyone here is a criminal because he's not doing what he should do. Criminals are put into jail because they don't follow the law. The laws of God are religion. That's religion. So we're trying to become good citizens again. And then we can go back to the spiritual world. So at least we're humble enough to admit, well, I have a problem, and I don't want to. Madhavendra Puri said, I have nothing to be proud of. I entered the samsara. Nothing. Okay? So now you see the difference. We do compare contrast. Let's do another one. We'll come to another section when Arjuna wants to quit. He doesn't want to fight. So this is a paradigm from Covey. Win-win, lose-lose. So if he doesn't fight, he loses. He gets a sinful reaction, and he loses his reputation. But if he fights, what does he win? Yeah, if he wins, he gets either the kingdom, or he goes to heaven if he dies. Kshatriyas don't leave the battle alive. They leave victorious. If they leave the battle alive, they're not Kshatriyas. They're just Kshatriyas in name only. A Kshatriya will fight to the death. So you don't want to get an argument with a Kshatriya because they won't stop until they defeat you. So you should be able to know who's a Kshatriya. Okay? So it's win-win, lose-lose. So this is for us too. If we abandon our duty, what happens? We get a reaction, right? This applies. And you don't become famous. You become infamous. Okay, the next one. Bondage. What brings bondage? Abandonment of duty, attachment to the fruit, and material body consciousness. All those three keep you in the cycle of birth and death. That's what this chapter is meant to defeat. The next section, well, what is freedom? Because everybody wants to be free. So these are called the regulative principles of freedom. Freedom means freedom from the bondage of material energy. That means internal voluntary control. The material energy gives you an enforced external control. But when you involuntarily manage your own life and you use self-control, you're free. Narada Muni can go anywhere. But a tree can't move. And we're conditioned. We can only move so much. We're conditioned according to our purity. So freedom means performance of duty, detachment from the fruits, gross and subtle. I didn't do it. Nature did it. And finally, transcendental consciousness. I'm not this body. I'm a soul. So do we want bondage or do we want freedom? Okay. And the last one. This is the materialist. Everyone will do it. And this is the spiritualist who's advanced. He will do this. Number one, what will a materialist do? He will exploit inferiors, kill the cow. You know, put people in factories. Ugra karma. What will he do with his equals? He'll compete with them. I want to be better than you. And what will he do with his superiors? Envy them. Ooh. I don't think he's so good. You get around even devotees if they're not so advanced and you feel it. Now, what's the next one? I'm sorry, go back. What will an advanced spiritualist do? He will what with inferiors? He will help them. He'll be compassionate. He'll help them. He won't exploit them. He thinks, I know more than you are. I'm going to help you. Number two, what will he do with equals? He'll make friends with them. And what will he do with his superiors? He serve them. Why? Because you become like what you serve. If you serve Krishna, if you serve the spiritual master, you take on those qualities. You take on the qualities of what you serve. If you serve a dog, guess what happens? You take on animal, you're in contact with the modes. You become infected with the lower modes. It's infection. You serve somebody else who's not so nice, you become infected by the conditioning that they have. So you want to be serving the right thing. Everybody understand that one? Okay. Now I found an interesting point here. Next slide. Later we have an analogy of the tortoise, and this is the perfect example of a devotee. He knows how to use his senses at the time prescribed. So he will withdraw his head and his limbs, and he will use them only as needed. Now, sometimes we might confuse the word tortoise with turtle, but they're different. Turtle and tortoise. How many people used to think they were the same? Did you think they were the same? Well, they're not. Let's find out what's different. Because this one's a perfect analogy, and it's Krishna's. A tortoise can completely pull his limbs in and his head. And he also lives on ground. He can be in the water, but he lives so he has feet. His limbs walk. He's terrestrial. And he's vegetarian. He's a vegetarian. So the thing about him is he can completely pull his head inside. The turtle, look at his limbs are flappers, paddles. He lives in the water, he's aquatic, and he often eats flesh. He's not a vegetarian. Yeah, and also the back is heart-shaped. Yeah. No, not completely. He can't pull completely, partially. Partially. He cannot pull his head in completely. So I thought it was just an interesting to understand the difference between a turtle and a tortoise, and why the tortoise is perfect, because he can pull his head in all the way. Okay? No, anything that falls in the category of a turtle is lives in the water. That's their definition. Yeah. Okay? Just an interesting point. Okay? So now let's take a look, and what we want to do by the end is be what? Self-realized. And that's 3 steps again. I'm spirit soul. I'm part and parcel of Krishna, and my duty is to serve him with love and devotion. That is the 3-step formula to self-realization. It's not just I'm soul, that's not enough. And it's not enough just to know I'm even part and parcel of Krishna. There's activity there, and that's my constitutional duty. That we're here because we abandon our spiritual duty. So now, the minute you engage in Krishna consciousness, you're actually, to some degree, liberated in proportion. It's proportional. You're liberated. You're bound up when you don't, and you're liberated when you do. Your choice is like that. Okay? Does those help you? Compare and contrast? Okay, now let's take a look at the icons. Oh yeah, we wanted to do some of these. We'll do a quick run through on take-home points really fast. Clock goes so fast. Let's take a look. You know the chapter title, everybody? What is it? You go to the first page inside. What's the chapter title? Contents of the Gita summarized. Put a check mark if you know it. Can you do that? Mark your paper. Do you know the name of the chapter? That's important. So put a check. Can you do it? All right. What chapter number is it? 2. So put a check if I know this. This means if I walk out of here, somebody tells me what's the title chapter, I'll tie that chapter, and what number is it, you can say. How many verses are there? So put a tick mark if you, this is my take-home point. Okay? What section of the Gita does this in? It's in the Karma Yoga section. This is the section called Vairagya, detachment. Knowledge and detachment. Jnana and Vairagya. Learning detachment. Okay, what are the topics? We're going to have 5, right? We'll go over that a little later. There are 5 topics. But they're easy to know because the first one is Arjuna still has doubts, but he surrenders. And then Krishna gives him 4 reasons why he has to fight. He has to fight because of the soul. He has to fight because it's his duty. As a Kshatriya, he has to fight because it's buddhi, intelligence. He's without reaction if you fight with the right consciousness. And if you fight on a higher level, this is a glimpse of bhakti. You're fixed in transcendence, and that's very elevated. All right, now, again, we use some numerical things here. Number 1, it goes from 1 up to 8. What is the supreme original cause of all causes? Krishna. Yes. That's why he's speaking Gita. You can't go higher. That's the point. He's the topmost authority. That's why he's speaking the book, and that's why we should know it. You can't go wrong. You can get a lesser authority, but this is the best. How many types of living entities are there? Right. There are Brahmanas and Kripanas, right? And how many kinds of souls? 2, yeah. Krishna is the supreme soul, and we're the individual soul. How many philosophies? We have 2 philosophies here. This is technical. These are atheistic. These are technical. How about Swadharma? How many do you have? 2. If you think you're the body, you have 2. You have your conditional one, and you have your constitutional one. Conditional one will change. But the constitutional ones, we all do the same thing. We chant Hare Krishna, we read Bhagavad-Gita, right? We follow the 4 regular principles. Those are constitutional duties. The other ones will differ. Maybe you're not an accountant. Maybe you're a manager. Or maybe you like to work on the computer. Or maybe you're a cook. They differ. And they'll change with the body, and they change with age, too. So those change. But the other one doesn't, because it's on the soul platform. That's changeless. That's eternal. All right. What about threefold miseries? Adhyatmika, Adi Bodhika, and Adi Daivika. Okay. Problems of material life, 4. What are they? Birth, old age, just don't forget it. That's what you get. If you want the fruits of your work, you're going to have to take the reaction. And then we have here, what else do we have? Defects, we went through that. Defects of the conditioned soul. Everybody's got them until you purify, get rid of them. Kinds of life air. People do yoga, they think this is important, but actually the real purpose of yoga is to get free of the contamination of those 5 airs. That's the real Hatha Yoga system. Opulences of Krishna. You see those there? How many are there? 6. And what does he have? Right. Riches, strength, all of them incomplete. Fame, beauty, knowledge, renunciation. This is a handy list for you, right? And bodily transformations. What happens to the body? Anybody noticed? Is anybody here a little baby? Were you a baby before? Yes. Where is it? Where's that body? And as you get older, I tell you, it changes by the minute. You watch it. I look in the mirror. I think, wait a minute. It's actually a movie. We're watching a movie. The body's changing every second. It's just it's going so fast, it looks like a film. Okay, birth, growth, development, byproducts, right? And then you start to dwindle. And then what happens at the end? You drop, yes, you die. And stages of downfall, very important. It's like an avalanche. Dominoes. I contemplate. I get attached. I want it. I don't get it, I get angry. And then I get deluded. And then my memory gets bewildered. And then my intelligence is lost. And then I fall back in the material pool. And we have fallen. Prabhupada said, we're here. We already fell. So don't think you're not there. Okay? So on the next page, you've got, again, a place to fill in those answers. Let's go to the themes really quickly. Let's circle those. The most important is number 1. What's number 1? You see it up there? Soul and transmigration. That's a big one. Another one is 5B. Do I work or do I renounce my work? Do I work in devotion or do I renounce my work? This is the big issue. Arjuna wants to renounce his work. And number 7 is a big one. Circle that one. Defeating impersonalism. Prabhupada can use so many slokas to defeat impersonalist conception. Number 10A, the relationship between Jiva, Ishvara, and Prakriti. This is self-realization. You can't understand one without the other 2. It takes 3 doers. And these are 3 out of the 5 truths. And we get a glimpse, we see Varnashram, that's a big one. Performing your duty according to your psychophysiological nature. And you want to circle the first 12A, Bhakti. We're getting a glimpse of devotion. Prabhupada immediately equates everything with Bhakti. Buddha Yoga is Bhakti Yoga. Krishna consciousness. He takes everything to the top right away. He doesn't wait for the end of the book. Okay? Okay? Let's learn our topics now really fast. Okay? We wanted to learn the topics by heart. So let's look at the pictures, and you have that in a chart. In the back, in your chart section, you'll see where you can give yourself a quiz because you have a way to fill it in. These are like little activity booklets. So if you go to the section in the back, you'll see the fill in the blank. It's a little hard to read with the gray, but if you look at the picture, let's look at the picture one first, Abhay. Picture chart. The big one. I think we had separate slides for those. Picture chart. Big one. Because they can't read that. Okay. Can you see it now? You have 5 pictures here. Arjuna is still in doubt for 10 verses. How many? 10. He's still in doubt. He keeps he's do I, don't I, do I, don't I, do I, do I, and he gives all the argument. Finally, by 7, he's exhausted, and he said, okay, you tell me, I surrender. And he says, I'll do what you tell me. But then he says, I'm not going to fight. It's contradictory. So he's still grief-stricken. So for 10 verses, 1 through 10, Arjuna has further doubts, but finally he picks a guru, and he picks Krishna. At this point, that gives Krishna the chance to speak the whole Bhagavad-Gita. In the first chapter, he only speaks 1 verse. In the midst of the armies. This one he does now, but he's in the midst of the armies, and now he's going to explain the Gita for the benefit of mankind. So you have to invite somebody to speak. They don't just stand up and say, I'm going to tell you something. People have to be invited to speak. That's etiquette. The next topic is Gyan, the soul. He has to fight for 4 reasons. Because he's a soul, he's not really killing the soul. The body might get killed, but not the soul. So that's how many verses there? 20 verses. 10 in the first one, 20 in the next one, and in the third one, right, Karmakanda. And I once got a letter from Pradyumna, and he asked about that, and he said, is it really that Karmakanda? And I should have written him again this time. I don't know, he's busy, but he said actually prescribed duty means anybody. It's obligatory. Karmakanda is specifically for certain objectives. So I don't know if this is correctly or incorrectly, but he had he had questions about this one. So I didn't want to confuse you, but I felt obliged to bring it up. Because prescribed duty means you have to do it. It's not a matter of you're going to get a result. You have to do your duty, or you get a sinful reaction, right? Number 4, buddhi. Now, how do I act? I have to act so I'm not bound up, because my actions will bind me up. I'm already bound up, and I'll make more by every... So this is how do I act? Bhakti-yoga, and that's 15 verses. Okay? The other one on prescribed duty is only 8. That's easy. And the last one, sthita prajna. I'm going to fight, but I'm in transcendence. I'm fixed. I'm fixed in my consciousness. Whatever I do, I'm soul, and I'm acting in a particular way. And this chapter describes the symptoms of a person who has attained this level. Okay? So you know all 5 now? Okay, the first one was doubts and surrender. Second one was Gyan, Sankhya, Gyan. Third one was prescribed duty. Fourth one was how to act without sin. Right, that's buddhi. That's using your intelligence. I don't keep the fruits. I'm entitled to my portion, but I don't take more than my share. I renounce the fruits. And the result. And finally, being fixed in, I'm the soul. I'm not the body. I'm in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so we've got that much? All right. Let's take a look now at the coins on that chart. So you've got, let's flip to that, because I really want to do that. The icons. Do you all have your icon section? Let's do that, because picking keywords really helps. It gives you a really fast way to cover the whole thing. So let's do a quick one. Let's take a look at the pink ones. Do you see them here? And you see your keywords? All right, now if you look at the keywords, look to see if there's some similarity. Tears, impurities, impotence, counterattack, begging. Zoom out and do it. You had it before. Let's look at those pink ones. Close. Sovereignty, Govinda, and grief-stricken. Those are all pretty strong words, and they're emotion words. Arjuna is distressed. He doesn't want to fight. He's crying. He doesn't want to counterattack. Grief-stricken. He doesn't want. He agreed at the end. He says, "I'm not going to fight." He sits down again, and Krishna is now arguing with him. What's this? Right? Impurities. impotence, his disapproval. I don't know if you've ever had the experience, but have you ever gone to someone and you've revealed your mind and then that person argues with you? So that's what happened. He was expecting Krishna to agree with him, but Krishna didn't agree with him at all. He's a Kshatriya. Come on, get up. You can fight. And he gives him all the reasons why in this chapter. So you see the words. So tears, impurities, impotence. These are 2 verses by Krishna. Arjuna speaks again, but I can't counterattack. This is Drona, this is Bhishma. Better to beg. And I don't know what's better, if they conquered us or we conquered them. He's in doubt. Do I, don't I? If I do, I don't. Do. This is duality. Now he says, I'm your disciple. You tell me. This is the changing point for everyone. The minute a jiva takes to spiritual life and surrenders, his consciousness begins to bloom. Anybody who doesn't do that, the consciousness is budding, but it's thwarted. Sadhana bhakti, the consciousness blooms up until sakti, bhav, and full bloom in prem. So you're like a flower. You're opening up. Your consciousness is opening up. The more you progress in bhakti, but that's the critical beginning point. The minute you practice sadhana, you're on your way. Now he's arguing. This is a good verse because he said, even if I win a kingdom, I won't be happy. I can have the sovereignty of the demigods. Then he says, Sanjaya is now telling Dhritarashtra, who thinks Arjuna is going to quit, Govinda, I shall not fight. He just told him, tell me, but then he argues. And he sits down and he's grief-stricken. And Dhritarashtra thinks, oh, good, we can win the kingdom without a war. Now Krishna will speak. Okay. Now let's take a look at the beginning of the soul. We'll run through these really fast, and they're progressive. They begin with things that, just for the person who doesn't understand the soul, they begin with things that anybody can perceive. And they get more detailed. Then logic. If somebody has some logic, he can figure this out. Then we quote authority. Krishna quotes seers of the truth. He'll quote authority. And then he will present what we cannot prove. It is beyond our mental investigation. We have to accept Shastra. There's no way for us to know because the soul is beyond circumspection. So we'll see a progression here. So now those who are, and on all of these verses, when we're going to read the verses, we'll do that tomorrow actually. This is sort of the overview. All of these verses stress, curb lamentation. There's no reason to lament, Arjuna. There's no reason to grieve, Arjuna. There's no reason to be sad, Arjuna. He's trying to curb Arjuna's lamentation. So those words come up repeatedly. Wise. Never was there a time when you and I didn't exist. The embodied soul. Anybody can see it's changing. And if we have to tolerate the inconveniences of summer and winter and having this, if we do that, we become eligible for liberation. That's worth it. And now he quotes authority. Seers of the truth, they have said, that which is real is permanent, eternal. That which is unreal is temporary. The body is perishable, the soul is not. So again, he says, don't grieve for the body. And now he's proving that you can't slay the soul. Even if you fight, the soul cannot be slain. There's now many words that we cannot prove. These are from Shastra. It's primeval, it's immutable. It's like the body's just a cloth. It's a garment over the soul. The soul is inside, and it's covered by the mind and the subtle and the gross body. We're inside of this. This is a suit. It's a prison. It's a prison suit. It can't be cut. You can't do anything material to the soul because it's non-material. You can't cut it. And again, it's everlasting. He's just trying to tell you the difference between, he's every angle. You're different. You're not this body. So convincing. But still we think we are. This illusion is so heavy, huh? Lifetimes, misidentification. It's invisible. Can anybody see the soul? No, that's why they say it doesn't exist. But even if you take the atheistic view, even if you think there's no soul, then it's just a bag of chemicals. So who's going to worry about a bag of chemicals? Worthless. So do your duty. And let's think, there was a time when you didn't exist, and there's going to be a time when you won't exist, so what? 100 years ago, were any of you here? 100 years from now, will any of you be here? Manifest, unmanifest? So what? Nobody's going to remember us. Nobody. And now he's telling you all the reasons the soul is amazing. It's in an elephant, it's in a microbe. Little tiny soul. Now he finally said, he repeats, he who dwells in the body can never be slain, therefore no reason to grieve. He uses the words, don't lament, don't grieve. He's saying it, he says it in about 7 verses. So you see those words. And then the last section we'll do for today will be the Kshatriya. This is easy, only 8 slokas. You're a Kshatriya, you have to act like one. Right? And if you do your duty, you'll be happy. You'll either go to heaven or you'll win a kingdom. If you neglect your duty, what will happen? Sinful reaction. And then what's even worse, 3 levels of infamy. You have 3 kinds of people in your life. General people, they don't know you that well. Your equals and your enemies. Okay? Generally, people will think you're infamous, Arjuna. You're known to be a warrior. You'll become infamous, not famous. And your equals, your generals, the Maharatis, they'll think you left out of, they think you're a coward. You'll lose your esteem with your equals. And your enemies, whoa, they'll scorn you. They'll have a good time. They'll scorn your ability. So, you fight. Enjoy your kingdom or go to the heaven. It's the win-win one. And the mood in which you fight? For the sake of fighting. Happiness or distress, don't worry about loss or gain. Don't worry about victory or defeat. He's telling Arjuna, he said, I'd rather see you die on the battlefield than walk away and lose your reputation. You'll never live, for a Kshatriya, that he could never live it down. Never, never. Others might not care, a Brahmin knows so what they say, you know, but a Kshatriya, that would be the end for him. Okay? So much for today. We ran over a little bit. We wanted to look at some of the slides for that. I think what we can do really fast, just take a quick, like 2 minutes, run through those words with the slides on those 3 sections. And then tomorrow we'll go through the icons and the keywords for 54 and 5, and we'll look at some more purport slides and analogy slides. Okay, so let's look at tears, right? We'll just get some picture reviews. Who said this? Impurities. Who's talking? Krishna. Right. Next one. You're impotent. Come on. Yeah, this is not the way. And he's now Arjuna said, wait a minute, I can't fight with Drona and Bhishma. They're my teachers. I can't counterattack them. And then he said, I'd rather beg. Then he said, but now I don't know what's better, conquering them or being conquered. What's going to be better? He's not sure. Do I, don't I? Yes, no, yes, this is duality. Next. Okay, Krishna, you tell me what to do. I become your what? Disciple. Number 8. But if I win, the sovereignty, be sure she gets prasadam, Mataji. 2, give them couple, Mataji. Yeah, because with so much prasadam. Okay. This proves that wealth cannot give you happiness. Even if I win, I won't be happy. It's true in the world where they have so much material facility, they're not happy. Wealth doesn't make you happy. Internal soul makes you happy. And the next, Govinda, I shall not, what? I won't fight. And the next verse, he's grief-stricken, and Sanjaya said he's going to sit down. And Dhritarashtra thinks, I've won. Okay. Now we'll quickly look, and we just quickly, the words are wise. The wise don't lament. And never was a time we didn't exist. And there's time showing us birth, old age, and then the body, embodied soul keeps rotating through birth and death. You have to tolerate the differences of life, the dualities. You have to tolerate them. If you're neutral, you become eligible for liberation. If you become happy or sad, you become caught up in duality. And the seers, this is actually Socrates. Prabhupada said he's the only Western philosopher. He said there are no Western philosophers. They think they're the body. Even Einstein, they think they're the body. But Socrates knew he was not the body. He drank the hemlock. He said, you can't capture me. Okay? Imperishable. There he is. He's taking the hemlock. I'm not going to... You catch me first. You can't kill me. You can't catch my soul. Okay? And there we have the changing body. Going through all the phases. You cannot kill the body. Who thinks he is, he's an illusion. I mean the soul. You can kill the body, but you cannot kill the soul. And the body, this is a symbol for primeval. That means it's eternal. We've always existed. And we can't be changed. You can't change the soul. It's unchanging. And it's like putting on clothes. It's a garment. That's it. You can't cut it. You can't do anything material to it. Burn it, dry it, cut it. Any of the material elements cannot harm the soul. Not possible. It's everlasting. He's using, again, eternality here. It's invisible. 1/10,000th the tip of... Nobody can see it. You can tell by its symptoms, but you can't see it. And if you think it doesn't exist, even if you think, what's the point of a bag of chemicals, right? Next, so do your duty and don't grieve. All right? There was a time you didn't exist, there will be a time you don't exist. You're just right now we're existing. That's it. And the soul is amazing. And most of all, he who dwells in the body, he's part of this. You see, you have the soul. Many people don't know they have a soul to start with. Okay. So don't grieve for anybody. Kshatriya has to do his duty. This is the first 3 sections. The next one, he'll be happy if he does. If he neglects, he'll become sinful. People will speak of his infamy. The generals will lose their esteem for him. His enemies will scorn him. These 3 things will happen. So enjoy the fight. Win the kingdom or go to heaven. Either way. It's a win-win. And finally, for the sake of fighting, don't worry about happiness, distress, loss, or gain. Okay, so we'll stop here. We ran you through a lot. Tomorrow we'll do the last 2 sections, and we'll spend a little time looking at slides on some analogies in the purport. You've got a lot of material here. Any one of these sections is huge. And thank you for tolerating such a hot day, but hearing Bhagavad-Gita, at least as Prabhupada and Krishna presented for us, it's one of the things that it's a very important activity during the month of Purushottam. So we bought some bananas yesterday for today, and they get pretty ripe. So I don't know if they're going to be too ripe, but take a couple and If they're too ripe, there might be a friendly little cow that likes bananas. I don't know. Again, does anybody have any particular questions, or are we fine with that? I think it's pretty. You've got your chart. Most people, you sit on a hot day. Quite a sacrifice. Yeah, you had a question? Yeah, that's absolute. It's in two references in the purport. It's in two references. 1/10,000th. See, this is the thing we can't prove. And there's no mechanical device that can prove it. So, it's in two references. Prabhupada gives that in the purports. Svatasvara Upanishad and Mundaka Upanishad, I believe. So you get those two. You'll see there's a whole list of references for the soul. You'll see where they, which purport that is. I can't remember exactly. I think it says where it cannot be seen, that sloka. Is that helpful? Yeah, it's absolute. See, these are things we cannot prove or disprove. That's why we have to accept Shastra. You have no other authority. Right? And a person who accepts Shastra, I probably use the analogy of the mother is the only one who can tell you who the father is. Right, because she's your authority. And so if you want to know who your father is, because you weren't around to know, and you can't remember, you weren't possible to know. Say it a little louder. I don't. There's no mic here. Yeah. What was that? Yeah. Go ahead. What was it again? Okay, she's got the mic. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
If we consider a huge animal, so the rear size will be broader, and if we cut into 10,000 parts, so
Yeah.
the soul size will differ. But if we consider any other animal, the soul size will.
It's the same, right? And that's in the amazing sloka number 29. In a microbe or in an elephant, it's the same. The size. Even Brahma's as big as the universe. He's got the same size. There's equality only on the spiritual platform. So when they try the United Nations for equality on the physical platform, not possible. It's always external differences, and they're changing. So that's not possible. The whole thing, United Nations and peace, and you can't have peace on the bodily platform. You can't have happiness either. You get the suffering, and you saw what you get. Yeah, give her the mic. Yes, yes. It looks as though I'm speaking. It looks as though I am speaking, but I'm not. And it looks as though you are. Yeah. No, but you can see them by their symptoms.
By symptoms.
Yes, the modes are ropes. Yes, and that's all well defined in the Bhagavad-Gita. 3 chapters, symptoms of the goodness, passion. That's Krishna. Yeah, that's the positive position. Material concept is negative. Envy, duality. Prabhupada says that material means the highest you can go in the material world. He says it's just trying to go to a first-class prison. He said all material education is trying to elevate people to first-class prison. And the topmost prison would be Brahmaloka. But you can't get out of the prison.
You said something about the karma.
Yeah, that's bad. Oh, yes.
But demigods cannot leave this material universe until they do not exhaust their pious.
Yeah, they have to come back down to earth. Yeah, that's why they take. Yeah, they have to pray to come. The demigods pray to take birth as humans in Bharat Varsha. So you're lucky. They say the humans are already doing bhakti. They can't.
So then, can you move to the first one where 4 imperfect senses,
Yes.
so imperfect,
The imperfections.
yeah.
Illusion. Yeah. Illusion.
No, this.
Yeah, the first slide where we had all the people, the defects, right?
Yes. No, next. You see, these imperfect senses, and then envy of Krishna, envy of other living entities.
Yes.
Here, my question was there, like you said. So, envy of Krishna,
That's the original fall down.
but the person maybe doesn't know that he envies Krishna.
He doesn't know that.
He
No.
doesn't know the name of Krishna.
Yeah.
But he's in here. He doesn't know. So envy of Krishna, you can say to him that you are envy of Krishna.
Yeah, it's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. You become his competitor.
And envy of other living entities.
Yes, because
Position of every living being.
yes. Anybody.
You said something which I missed. What's the link between envy of Krishna and envy of Bhakti?
Because every other living being is part and parcel of Krishna, so it's the root. If you envy Krishna, you envy others also.
So this is envy of Krishna is the root, and everybody automatically will be from
Yes.
root envy.
Yes, it spreads.
to other
Yes, that's why if you love Krishna, you'll love everybody.
So
He said, Prabhupada says love is only possible if you love Krishna. Everything else is lust.
first thing, we
Yes.
should love Krishna, not love particular. I love him.
No, Krishna is the central point. It'll happen automatically.
Yeah. So better to love Krishna.
Right.
and
Yeah,
you
water in
can
the...
love
Yeah,
all his
yes,
other parts.
yes.
So the link is the primal cause of our enviousness.
Yes, yes.
The envy of Krishna.
Yes, that's the root. That's the root. And that's what you correct by doing devotional service.
This I can correct by doing devotional service to Krishna.
Yeah, yeah.
Do devotional service.
You're getting back to what you should be doing. You're
It means just
reversing the process, right?
when Krishna offers my enviousness to Krishna, then immediately I will lose it.
Yeah, you envied him. Now you want to say, I'm sorry. I love, you've been so good. You've come as super soul to accompany here, whether I'm a worm in stool or whether I'm Brahma. But I don't want to be in the prison house. I'm ashamed of my misconduct, and I'd like to go back to the spiritual world and perform my constitutional eternal duty in a mood of loving service.
But nevertheless, people again and again falling down from the human form of life, they're falling down, especially in Catholic.
Yeah.
Falling down,
Independence.
misuse of
Yeah.
independence.
Right. Right.
And plus, can I report this allowing to report all these things have this kind of
Well, this is the whole point. Prabhupada said if you drop a stone in the water, it makes circles. But if you drop many stones, it makes circles and they fight. So if everybody thinks he's God, then there's going to be conflict. But if everybody's serving the center, there's no conflict. There may be a different mood, but there's appreciation this person's a servant of Krishna.